It only takes one spark, one insight, one idea to create the exponential growth you desire. Welcome to the Growth Mode Podcast, where we share the strategies for your growth. Hey, welcome back to the Growth Mode Podcast. Today, we're going to talk about the $2 billion jump ball coming up January 1st. Yes, my friends, expireds. Love them or hate them. There's going to be a whole lot of sellers that need your help. We're going to talk about the Zillow recent lawsuit on steering for home loans. We're going to talk about some end of the year projects, things that you should do to make sure you're ready for the new year. And we do want to talk about the possibility of this 50-year mortgage. Is it a good idea? Is it a bad idea? So all of that and more. Today, it's just Jimmy and I. We don't know where Jason is, probably on an airplane speaking somewhere. Jimmy Mackin, how are you, my friend?
Tom, the best podcast I listened to this past week was from our friend David Senra, Founders Podcast. And I recommend everyone listen to it, where he actually profiled Larry Ellison.
Ooh.
And one of the things that I love about Larry Ellison is not one of these new breeds of tech executives who pretends they're trying to save the world when they're just capitalists. He was a full contact capitalist, and he had this great line in his philosophy. He goes, the thing that Larry Ellison did better than anybody else was he picked an enemy. And I'm reminded of that as we kick the show off, because I think right now, a lot of agents are feeling like end of year, they're planning, they're hoping, they're preparing. I think sometimes having an enemy is a great motivation to get yourself in gear and get yourself kind of out of maybe the end of year rut that a lot of people fall into, is to kind of say, listen, you got to sometimes, if you've been doing it for a long time, you're selling real estate for 25 years, 30 years, right, you have to manufacture some of that stuff to get yourself geared up to get ready to rock and roll.
I love it because I can look back at my own career and multiple times where I was like, I want to beat that person.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's my target. I did find some people do it because they actually really hate the person. I find that doesn't work as well. Like, because once you're there, now you're like, I built my business based on like hating this person versus like in service of my customers.
Sure.
But I do love that idea. And I'd be curious, for our friend listening, whether you're on Spotify or Apple or you're watching on YouTube, has there ever been a time in your career when you had to lift a significant growth in your business because you selected an enemy and said, I want to beat that gal, or I want to beat that guy? And I know for me, it absolutely worked in the very beginning of starting my company. Like the first 3 years, it was like, I just wanted to beat a certain individual. And once I did, I was like, okay, we got this.
Yeah,
So
I love that.
I want to flip the switch though. We talked about the things we want to cover today on the show. There's a lot of sort of things in the news I think are important for people, but I want to start first with, at Listing Leads, we created this devastating multi-page report called the 2024 Expired Listing Blueprint. And the reason why I bring that up for my friend listening is I was doing a little research at, what's the number of listings that will expire, between sort of December 30th of this year to January 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th. And from what I can determine, and this is just a sort of, rough grok estimate, shout out to, X.AI, it's about $2 billion in commissions, Jimmy, that are going to basically be up for a jump ball. Now, I know, for my friend listening right now, tell me in the comments, do you work expireds, yes or no? And if you don't work expireds, tell me why. I want to know why. And I want to speak directly to the person that says, well, I don't like expireds or they're not my thing. I would ask you to think more holistically. Tom and Kathy Ferry put their home on the market with the agent they thought that can get the job done. We probably didn't listen to them on price. We were probably unrealistic, but at the end of the day, most consumers don't take responsibility for that. They say, well, maybe we should try another agent because, they only did one open house. They didn't get a lot of views on Realtor, Zillow, et cetera. And they select somebody new. And I would make the argument for every good agent out there, if you have empathy, if you believe that what you do is valuable, then there's not many other great lead opportunities for listings like expired listings. And I would ask you, could you reframe your thinking instead of they're angry and they're mad and like a million people call them on day one, which actually doesn't really happen. Like in certain markets, maybe in LA, they get 300 calls. But if you do what Jimmy's teaching in terms of listing attraction with the letters and the campaigns and the text and everything else, you could very quickly separate yourself from the competition and win a bunch of listings. And why would you not do that to start the new year? So Jimmy, what if you look back at that campaign, like We helped a lot of people, sort of this time last year through the beginning of the new year. What is the best advice around expireds for our friend listening right now if they want to come out of the gate with a bang in 2026?
Well, this is a we were on a live podcast last week with Dave Childers from Keeping Current Matters, and he gave us a mind-blowing stat that the number of expireds is up 57% year over year. And by the way, that's coming off the back of 2 consecutive years where we've seen basically double digit, triple digit growth in that category. So the thing that we've seen countless examples of this when we're talking about on the growth mode or any other podcast we do together. We have lots of agents who are saying, "Hey, I started doing this. I got 6 new listings this year, 10 new listings this year, 12 new listings this year." So the first kind of bit of advice I give everyone is that you don't have to be Tom Tool to be able to actually start leveraging Expire to get business. And so I think a lot of people are afraid of it. They're afraid of the work involved in the phone calls. They're afraid like they don't have experience doing it. Maybe they've never sold an expired listing before. So they don't have that kind of case study to back it up like our friend Carolyn Young and Tom Toole do. So the first thing is they've got to get over the hump that these individuals need our help more than anybody else out there. And I'm reminded of a campaign, Tom, of like my first exposure into this was about 12 years ago. This guy named Bob Milloway in New Jersey. He sent me a DM on Facebook. He said, like, this is an example of my expired campaign. And it was, I did a reel on this recently, but it was like basically a printout annotated with like things he would have done differently.
Hmm.
And he just mails that. He goes, "Hey, here you go. Here's something to do differently." So I think if I'm going to get into expireds, my advice is come from the perspective of not trying to get them to basically hire you, rather provide advice like you're their best friend who just wants them to help to sell the house. And if your messaging and your positioning are from that perspective, I think the consumer is going to feel that, Tom.
I agree. And the thing that I want to just double down on is I think my brother Matthew and I wrote a script for my dad like 100 years ago, and it went something like this. Hey, I'm sure you figured out that your home came up on our computer this morning as an expired listing, and I was calling to see. We wrote that script a long time ago, and I hope that's not what you're saying today,
Hmm.
right? You're paying attention to, like, that script was really good for its moment in the sun.
Sure.
I would argue today a very different approach, a more empathetic approach, a more understanding approach, but also the authority of, hey, I was on the MLS this morning, and look, I want to just be clear with you. The only reason your home didn't sell is one of three reasons: either it wasn't priced correctly, number two, it didn't show well, or number three, it didn't get the exposure. And I want to just start right up front and say to you, Mr. or Mrs. Expired, whoever I'm talking to, if the only thing is change the price, then you don't need me and you don't need any other agent. Just go back to your existing agent and say, let's just lower the price and get this thing sold. And do you think that's the case? I would have that kind of
Hmm.
authoritative yet understanding, compassionate, let them off the hook kind of conversation
Yeah.
versus I'm the best, I'm number one, I do this, I do that, which people have a fallback trap to, and that doesn't work either. Pe-
Yeah. And I think there's another category. I love that, Tom. And I think there's another category as well, which is if you're thinking about selling and you now are seeing homes in your market sit longer, you're seeing homes in your market have
yes,
more price reductions. Because by the way, sellers are paying very close attention to what's happening. Catherine Hamilton said this on a call recently to me. She goes, when your home isn't for sale, you have comps. When it hits the market, you have competitors. And
exactly.
so I think consumers are really paying close attention to what's going on. So one thing I would add is I call this sort of the expired case study postcard. And I'll share my screen. So if you're watching
I'm
this right
so
now on
glad.
Spotify,
Jimmy, I actually have it right now in front of me as well.
oh, perfect. Do you want
I've
to pull
been
it up too,
sharing
or you want
this.
me to pull it
No,
up?
you go ahead because you can probably see it right on the screen. There you go.
Okay.
I love it. This home did not sell. That's the headline. If you're listening on Spotify, you might want to jump over to YouTube just to see this because you're going to take a screenshot and steal it. So,
Yeah.
Jimmy, unpack this card for us.
Well, the right side is a redacted version of basically the home that did not sell on Zillow. And given the fact that we're seeing, again, a 57% increase in the number of expired, you have lots of homes to choose from. When you find a home that was poorly marketed, poorly positioned, poorly presented, get that home and then do an analysis or even have AI help you do an analysis on why you think this house didn't sell. And then on the left side of the postcard, we just enumerate reason number one, two, three, four, five, six, seven. And what's cool about this postcard, Tom, is I asked ChatGPT to basically back this with hard data to support my case. So everything you see on this postcard is actually real examples of sourceable data that says, hey, if you don't actually have more than, or if you have fewer than 9 photos, you're going to get half the clicks. If you don't use charm pricing is ending in a 9, you can actually can increase your clicks by like 8 to 10%. And it kind of goes on and on from there. And on the back of the postcard, we include what we refer to sort of as an expired case study. And I'll read it for those of you who are listening to the audio version. It says, hey, Tom, I removed the seller's data to protect their privacy, but here's what actually happened. The home sat in the market for 93 days. It got 2 showings. It had under 300 views on Zillow. By comparison, a similar home I sold nearby had 8 showings, 1,200 views, and sold in 46 days. Same market, same price range, different result. The difference, the details. Now, Tom, this is an important thing.
I love this card. I love this card.
Well, I think this is where sometimes, Tom, you don't throw the curveball, you throw the fastball right down the middle. And so the postcard ends with, if you're thinking about selling and you aren't sure who to hire, consider this my application. I'd love to show you how we can help you get results you're looking for. Here's my cell. And so I think this campaign, Tom, the beauty of something like this is, in addition to what the expired blueprint that we put together at Listing Leads, you can send this not just to expired listings, but to everyone in your farm, to avoid them from having to have the pain of hiring the wrong agent and then having the home sit.
Bingo. I just shared with, shout out to my friends at F&F, the biggest title company in the US, that this card should be sent to your database as a social proof piece, right? Like, hey, don't make this mistake. It should be sent to your geographic farm, and it should be added into the rotation for expired listings.
Exactly.
So back on this, I think we're on the same page. If they go to listingleads.com, they could download the entire expired blueprint. They can get that for free, right? They just go on there, do a free trial, yada, yada.
Yep.
Cool. Okay. So I'm going to strongly recommend for everybody out there, because we got a lot of ground we want to cover today, but let's just be clear. There's going to be a lot of people that get a huge leg up on all their competition the first couple weeks of January, because they're willing to dig deep, show up early, do the work. I mean, Jimmy, the number of text messages I get, on January 1st, they used to go like this. Oh my God, coach, do you think I can do it again? I used to get a lot of those. And now most of those people are like, they know they're going to do it again and do it even better. But now they're like this. Yeah, I got up at 5, New Year's Day, January 1st, and went to the gym, and then walked into my home office and generated $200,000 in commissions and opportunities. Like what a perfect way to start the new year. All right, so let's transition. I'm going to take that postcard. I had it also in front of me just in case, but you got the ability to show it. I do want to give a shout out to, if you go to my YouTube channel and you type in the Ladies of Listing Domination, you'll see 3 ladies that in one 10-month period all listed more than 100 houses separately. So, 300 plus properties. And actually one of them, I think she did like 250 herself. The other 2 both went over 100 each. That would be a great show to listen to. But while you're there, also check out all the videos by Carolyn Young on my YouTube channel, and Tom Toole, specifically around expired listings. You're going to get a lot of insight on tactics, what to say, cadence of follow-up, etc. All right, but let's switch gears. So yesterday, and I haven't posted a video yet, so I'm sure by the time that this show goes live, it'll be posted. There was a recent class action lawsuit, Armstrong versus Zillow Group, specifically about mortgage steering scheme. So I did get the entire filing, but I just went to Grok really fast and said, just tell me what are the 3 most important points. So this was filed November 7th, 2025. The allegations are Zillow is accused of pressuring real estate agents to meet quotas for referring buyers to Zillow home loans. And basically the catch is by withholding or reducing high value leads. So this isn't a kickback per se. They're not getting a commission for referring the loan, but instead the allegations are basically saying that they're reducing their lead flow if they don't push and promote Zillow home loans as the first choice. Now, Jimmy, why that matters is that is a violation of the Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act and state and consumer laws by basically denying buyers access to options, right? Options being the key. That's the first part. Second one is plaintiffs in scope, led by Alaska Homebuyer on behalf of thousands of U.S. consumers who obtain mortgages through Zillow affiliated agents, claiming they overpaid due to biased recommendations. Now, I'm going to make a statement. That's stupid. That's stupid, right? That's just stupid. The first one, I understand. The next one, I don't get at all. Why would you overpay because a lead came through Zillow or Realtor or Homes.com or Fast Agent or Fast Expert? Like that's just, but whatever. Like we're talking about attorneys here. The next one is that their relief for status. They're seeking $5 million in damages, restitution, and an injunction to halt the practices. So you and I were texting about this yesterday. I was going to go on and shoot a live about this. What's your immediate reaction from the real estate industry's perspective? Like, what do you think?
My immediate reaction is like another lawsuit, right? Like, like we just came off like 3 years of going through that, and I think
Yeah.
I think everyone's eager and excited to see Zillow, have to deal with this issue. I think the bigger question around this is I've talked about the importance of having a team. And what we
Mhm.
mean by that is not just the people in your business, your buyer's agents, your admin, but rather your mortgage partners, your title partners, how incredibly important it is to be able to bring people together. I think this is a reminder to everyone, Tom, that the fact is that consumers have options. And anytime you try to remove those options from them or drive them a specific direction, it ends up blowing up in your face in almost every instance. So I don't know if there's much validity to this because all this is a relatively new suit from what you've shared with me. I'm not sure if we're going to see any type of major impact as it relates to changes. But Zillow's got a big target on the back. You know more about this than I do. I'd love to get your thoughts in terms of, do you see this actually impacting agents in any meaningful way?
So, I mean, obviously, it's a no-no to not give the consumers choice, right? And if in fact, and again, these are all allegations, so we don't have any proof of this. If in fact an agent is being told you have to use ZHL versus your local in-house or whatever your partnership mortgage company, or we're going to reduce your leads, that's that's
Yeah.
mafia, right? Like that's mafia style. Like everybody's going to pay, right? Pay in
Hmm.
blood or you're going to pay in cash, but either way, you're going to pay. So which way do you want to pay? That doesn't work. Now, let's just assume that Zillow's wrong and that all this stuff is true. I always think about like, okay, so what happens? Well, so Zillow generates all the leads. They're
Yeah.
giving these leads to an agent, right? Or a team. I have always believed, and I think you do too as a marketer, that whoever generates the customer deserves the lion's share of the revenue. That's why I wasn't shocked when they started out with 25% referral fees, or I wasn't shocked when the price of a Zillow lead was like $50 in Houston, and now that same person's probably 5 grand based upon the referral model, right? Like I
Yeah.
wasn't
Sure.
shocked by that. If I was Zillow, I'd be thinking about probably hiring an army of people that are going to qualify the lead as a mortgage application before I send them to the agent. Like that's the simple adjustment, you know what I mean, that they could start doing immediately. And in terms of the possibility of them only saying you don't get loans or you don't get leads if we don't get loans,
Yeah.
that's just going to have to go away because that's a violation, and they would get in trouble for that.
Well, the issue too that I think if this does spin out of control and there's legislation that passes that basically is going to force more oversight as it relates to the relationship between mortgage and agents, the real cost is a lot of agents who are listening to this pod they co-market with
Of
their
course, of
so so
course.
so that is the one thing I would be paying attention to because right now part of the benefit of working with a really trusted mortgage provider is that you guys can get your name and your face out there and share in some of the cost
Mhm.
without the kickbacks, without the referrals, in a legal and very transparent way.
Right.
If that comes down, like it kind of does with title in certain respects, that could be a major issue for our industry, for agents who are having those partnerships.
Yes. So again, different when we're talking about MSAs or co-marketing. That's all RESPA approved, and and each headshot's got to be similar. Right?
Yeah.
Everyone knows those rules. And actually, industry game changer. I just talked to him on Friday briefly. Greer Allen, who founded the company Boomtown, who then sold to
Mhm.
IRE. he was the first one that figured that one out,
Yeah.
right? To be able to say, through RESPA compliance, can a loan officer offset the cost of generating leads back then from like Google and Facebook? And the answer was
Yeah.
yes. And I remember actually having conversations with the team at Zillow, and they're like, yeah, we're doing the same thing. Like, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
But that's very different from what we're talking about. That's
Sure.
very different from what we're talking about. So only time will tell. Man, the real estate industry does not need another class action lawsuit.
Well, I think your point is well made, and the reason we brought it up on the show is because it's a reminder to get closer to the customer. And
That
I
is
think if we talk
exactly
about like
right.
when you analyze your business from like imagine you're a McKinsey consultant and you are
Right.
hired to basically look at your own business. Chances are you're going to look at something called just looking at the risk. And
Yes.
what are the risk factors? Well, the more dependent you are on a third party source that you don't control or you don't influence, the higher the risk is in your business. Bottom line.
1000%. I'm also reminded, I won't share this person's name, but we're talking about living here at a recent meeting in San Diego with a bunch of team leaders. And one of them, here's the quote. He said, with everything Zillow's doing these days, the live in here data play is exactly what I needed to
Hmm.
know who myself and my team should focus on since we're follow-up boss users. And Zillow's now going to market to our combined new database better than I am. And I
Hmm.
was like, you are spot on, man. So, shout out to the team at Living Here. There's a lot of people doing this data play, but I think look at Zillow is going to keep Zillowing along. They're going to do what's
Hmm.
in their best interest for their shareholders to build their business. I think the other interesting part of this is the super app, right?
Hmm.
So the super app's going to be a factor, but remember, like Compass is building a super app, and other companies are building this sort of all inclusive, everything of your transaction all in one location. Um, It'll be really interesting to see. I don't know what the answer is. It'd be really interesting to see. Fast forward into the future,
Hmm.
will the Zillow app be in a risky situation if they're trying to control the entire experience? Because in that case, you're probably not giving the consumer choice. You're like, here's your loan, here's your
Yeah.
title, here's your escrow, here's your agent, here's your house.
Hmm.
Bing, bing, bing.
Yeah. I haven't heard the word super app in a while, which probably
I
tells you how
know.
it's going with
Yeah.
that project.
Yes. Exactly. Exactly. All right. So let's get off the Zillow conversation. I do want to talk. I want to talk about something that wasn't on the list, but I'm going to add it. Um, on January 7th, 2025, we did a snapshot of the prediction of mortgage rates.
Hmm.
And on January 7th, this year, 2025, the prediction, and by the way, you know the rule, like if you tried to make money predicting mortgage rates, you would go broke. The prediction for the year was we would finish at 6.36 as the average mortgage rate. Now, what do we know? Today we're at 6.32, at least while we're recording this. And listen, for my friend out there listening, I know you can get a mortgage today at 5.99 from lots of different banks and lots of different great mortgage providers. But if you're on like Mortgage Market News, it's 6.32. We also know, Jimmy, that on December 9th and 10th, the Fed gets together again in the US. And what we know from Polymarket, shout out to Polymarket, which if you're not on the Polymarket app, no, I'm not an investor. Damn, if you can get me into the deal, I want to get into the deal. Polymarket is like a way to track what people believe to be true, right? And
Hmm.
they bet on it, aka they put money into what they believe to be true. Thank you very much for pulling up Polymarket. I think it's the top left there. I can't see so well without my glasses. Um, Polymarket predicts 71%. Wait a minute, hold on here. That's the government shutdown. I don't care about that one, though we have some good news on that today, thank God. That one right there. So Fed decision in December, only 3%. That's actually moved in the last 20 minutes. Only
Hmm.
3% have put money on a bet that says we'll have a 50 basis point decrease, but 71% say a 25% basis decrease in December, sometime the 9th, 10th, 11th. So, Jimmy, as a marketer,
Yeah.
how would you recommend the person listening? I want to grow. I want to help a bunch of people. I
Hmm.
know it's December, but you know what? The calls that I don't make today cost me a lot of money in the future. So I'm going to make some phone calls. I'm going to send an email. I'm going to do a blog. I'm going to do an Instagram reel, assuming there's a 25% basis point decrease, assuming that the market hasn't already baked that into their pricing.
Yeah.
And we see 6.1 something. Maybe we
Hmm.
get to 6.0 something. It's a
Hmm.
sizable movement. and this leads me into the 50-year mortgage conversation, which we want to get into. What advice do you have for the listener to get the word out to as many people as possible that the cost of your home just became less, or the cost of your monthly payment just became less? What's your advice?
Well, first off, just real quick too, when you're looking at Polymarket, one of the really important things to do is look at the number of the volume of bets,
Yeah.
and the fact that $68 million is being traded on this particular bet is quite significant. So I think this is probably this is such an important issue, Tom, because there's two reasons. Number one, every single day, listeners of this podcast deal with objections from sellers and buyers saying, we just want to wait until fill in the blank. We just want to wait until home prices come down a little bit. We want to wait until interest rates come down a little bit. We want to wait until the spring market. And so I think when you look at something like this, whether the Fed adjusts the rates or not, and whether it's baked into the rates today as it is or not, the fact is that David shared this with us from KCM as well. The average mortgage payment in the U.S., I think he's looking at around a $400,000 mortgage, went down $323 since May.
Yep.
And so people in their minds have this massive delta between 6.125% and 5.99%.
Yes.
Now, there was a really good bank rate study on this. They found that of prospective sellers who were thinking of selling, only 5% of them would consider selling in a 6% interest rate environment. Whereas that number skyrocketed to 35% of sellers would consider selling when interest rates hit the fives. So there is this sort of world, Tom, where that like 5% is magic. And we actually asked this question on a live stream we did last week. We said, how many of you helped one of your buyers get less than 6%? And you guys should have seen it. It was a flood of people saying 5.8, 5.5, 5.125.
Right.
So my advice would be this when it comes to marketing is, first and foremost, I would say the subject line might be, you don't have to wait. Opening line might be of an email or a video. It's like, if the only reason you haven't decided to make a move is because you're waiting for interest rates to hit, insert a number, well, I've got good news for you. My client just got this interest rate in this scenario in this payment. And maybe I would go a little bit further and just help them understand that getting even a little lower rate is probably not going to have that much big of an impact on their payment. So I would give them context around, hey, good news, payments are down $323. Good news, you now have like another $100,000 in purchasing power, or at least $50,000 in purchasing power. And also, like, the rate you're looking for, people are already getting right now. So I just think a whole campaign around, you don't have to wait, here's why, is something that we should be pulling on and leveraging.
I agree. So, hey, really fast for my friend listening, since Jason's not on the show, have you moved the speed at which Jimmy and I are talking to like 1.25 or 1.5? I'm just curious. Let me know in the comments.
They're missing it.
Yeah, well, because Jason, they probably have to go to like 0.75 when he's talking, but like maybe we're not talking fast enough. So let's recap here. We talked about the expired opportunity. It's a big opportunity. I want to know, again, in the show notes, I want to know from my friend listening, are you going to take advantage of the $2 billion commission opportunity jump ball the first week of January? Second, what's your opinion on the Zillow lawsuit? Just let us know in the comments down below. What do you think's going to happen? Third, are you on Polymarket? Are you on Polymarket? Do you understand what Polymarket's all about? I mean, hey, it predicted the mayoral race in New York City. It predicted the governor races that just occurred in the U.S. I was talking with my buddy Alvaro. It predicted the presidential race, for him. So I think it's pretty interesting. I think it's worthy because we all want to stay on the pulse of what's happening. We want to know what's going on before it gets to the mainstream news. But then I want to switch gears. Let's talk about this 50-year mortgage for a second. So I did a video on this a couple of days ago, Jimmy, and it's got a lot of traction, got a lot of views, got a lot of comments. I wasn't like for or against it. I can look at the pros and the cons. The pros should be obvious. In the US, we have gone to a historic, horrific number. The average age of the first-time home buyer today in the US is 40 years old.
Yeah.
That's screaming affordability. Now, personally, if I was the president of the United States, I would not be trying to figure out how to do a 50-year loan. But I could make the argument for a 50-year loan, and I could make the argument against it. But my argument for would be, if it gets me into my first house and we can drive that number from 40 back into the reasonable 30s, that would be awesome. And by the way, we know why it's not just affordability. We know why people are getting married later, people are
Yeah.
having kids much later.
Sure.
That's a whole other issue. But I can make the argument for like, hey, it gets them into their deal. And then shout out to my buddy Denise, who is at the Mortgage Nerd,
Sure.
on Instagram and YouTube and every place else. She did a really great set of stories on this over the weekend where she was saying, look, the average consumer is going to buy a house. They're going to get into their house. They're going to be there for 10 years. And they're going to sell. Right. So it's not a forever. And if we know though, it's funny, Ken Pozak was in the comments on mine. And I think I saw another one where he was in some comments. And we both basically said the same thing. The downside of this is if I have a 50-year loan and I actually have it for like 25 or 30 years, which I couldn't imagine somebody doing, but it does happen, I'm essentially renting my house from the bank.
Yeah.
The bank makes a fortune on this. And I'm not anti-big bank. So if you're like an anti-capitalist person and you're listening to this show, my goodness, you should not be listening to this show because we are capitalists, right? We want to grow businesses and create empires and help people do the same thing. So I'm not an anti-bank guy.
Sure.
But I do believe at a certain point it's not the best solution, it's a solution. So what are your thoughts on 50-year mortgages? Do you think it's a good idea, bad idea? Well, it's not the only idea, but it's an idea that's on the table.
Here's the thing that I think everyone's missing in the argument, and you touched on it because I know you understand this really well. The people who are vehemently opposed to this idea immediately cite the fact that the amount of interest you're going to be paying on the house over the course of the term of the loan is outrageous. Okay, so let's put that aside. The reason that there is a compelling case that we need to have creative financing solutions is because we want to create better on ramps into owning properties. Yes. And so whether that's going from a 20% down payment to now being able to put down 3.5%, that unlocked a ton of new homeowners who otherwise would never be able to purchase. Now, here's the fact. If you do a comparison top, because this is the thing that people miss. Let's say hypothetically, you get a 50-year mortgage. And let's say hypothetically the payment is low enough where you can afford the payment and live in the house. And let's say that gives you a 3-year head start on someone else who has to save a little bit more money. Yeah. Well, if you're in the US where the average home is appreciating across the US like 3.5% over the last 20 years.
I got some numbers for you on that. Yes.
Yeah. So like if you look at if the consumer is able to get into the home earlier in a market where home values are appreciating, and that individual, let's say, just refinances to a 30-year mortgage at year 5. I actually asked ChatGPT this, and I'll share my screen so you guys can see this just to back it up. So I asked ChatGPT this very simple question. In a market where home values are appreciating 3.5%, if someone got a 50-year mortgage and then refinanced in 5 years to a 30-year mortgage, and how much equity would they have? And what would their net position be compared to someone who basically waited 3 years and just got a traditional 30-year mortgage? Yeah. And you can see here in this scenario, at the end of 10 years, the person who started earlier would actually have a $35,000 advantage over someone who started later. Yep. So the short answer is that this is not as black and white as people think it is. It's on the surface, it looks like a bad idea if you keep the mortgage. I think that's not a like compelling argument, Tom. Of course it is, right?
Yeah, of course it is. That's my argument also. Get into the deal, refinance, sell the house in 10 years. But it's interesting. So I was texting with our friend Jeremy Davis from Palm Agent yesterday. And of course, shout out to the Palm Agent app. Every person listening already has this app. Maybe you call it Fidelity Agent, Chicago Agent, Ticor Agent. Someone's going to be mad that I'm not saying their name, Agent. But yes, a lot of people. Here's what we were texting about. So let me just pull this up. He said, hey, so yeah, kind of surprising, 30-year versus 50-year mortgage, only a $300 a month savings on a $575,000 mortgage because of taxes, insurance, PMI, all stay the same. So it doesn't feel like it's going to give the relief that people are hoping for. And Jeremy's one of the biggest advocates for home ownership in the country. Like he wants people to be informed and make good decisions based upon the math. And I agree, but you know what? I don't think we're the ones that need to say it. I think the consumers will ultimately decide. I think a percentage of the population will say 50 years, I'm in, that makes my payment reasonable. Let's go. Yeah. And at the end of the day, time will tell. I think the vast majority will refi. I think the vast majority will sell in 10 years, and they will be in a better position than somebody that's just renting.
Our job is to present the information as it is
Yeah.
and allow them to make this. Tom, let me tell you a story on this because 50 years sounds like a long time. Okay. You know, like I spend every spring basically living in Disney World. And so
Yes.
last spring we were at the hotel, and in
Yep.
every single Disney hotel they have something called the Disney Vacation Club, which is basically a timeshare service that you can buy. And so my wife comes out to me. She goes, Jimmy, I think we should join the Disney Vacation Club. I said, I don't think it sounds like a good idea. I don't, it's a timeshare.
I'm gonna have to have a conversation with your wife on Saturday about this. I'm sorry for interrupting, but tell me
Tom,
no. Tell
she
me you
goes,
didn't do it.
no. So Tom, she looks at me and she goes, this is the kicker. She goes, listen, she goes, Jimmy, listen. She goes, I go, how long is the commitment? She goes, it's only 50 years. Now I thought she said 15 years. I'm like, that sounds like
Yes.
a long time. No, she goes, no, Jimmy, 50 years. So 50 years.
You're buying this for your daughter's children.
So if Disney can pull off a 50-year membership, of course, the idea of a mortgage probably is not a bad idea too. But the
Yes.
reality is, I think when it comes to something like that, just in case everyone wants to know, I did not do it. But the thing is that I think that this idea of just like get the facts, present them in an objective way. And again, you could use AI to help with this analysis. Look at all the different scenarios.
Okay, so I have another question for my listener. Grok, ChatGPT, or Perplexity? Which one is your
Hmm.
favorite and why? Grok, ChatGPT, or Perplexity? Jimmy, I don't know if you follow me on X. You know I'm an investor because I've said it 100 times on this show. I'm an investor in Grok. I'm an investor in Perplexity. So
Hmm.
I was on Grok and I was asking, no, actually it was on Twitter X. I went on X and I asked, hey, at Elon Musk, when are you going to add the features that seem to be so darn popular on ChatGPT into Grok? And then if you put at Grok, Grok will answer
Yeah.
the question. So Grok
Hmm.
said to me, "Thanks, Tom Ferry. We're not really a fan of trying to, model features from OpenAI. Instead, we want to be the truth. We want to be the source of truth." And
Hmm.
you can go on X and follow me, and you can see the exact conversation. Because I was kind of going back and forth. It was really interesting having this back and forth conversation with AI on a social network. So I'm just curious, what's everybody think? Grok over ChatGPT? Because with all the stuff that OpenAI is doing, and I don't want to get too deep into that, maybe not at all. We should save that for Jason. But
Hmm.
I'm telling everybody you should move away from ChatGPT. Not because I'm an investor in Grok versus Perplexity. I just have less and less faith
Sure.
in the team and the direction they're going. But I want to go a different direction first. That was just a little side note. I just want to know. I can't wait to read the comments. Okay, so let's end with this. Uh, what we know to be true. So I'm going to give you a little data point, my friend listening, and you're probably going to want to go to Keeping Current Matters and download these slides. So in January of this year, I started showing the following slide. It says home sales, so transaction count, home sales went up after 9 of the last 11 presidential elections. And the last time it didn't happen would have been Reagan 81 and 89. I think that would have been Bill Clinton, if I from
Hmm.
memory. And not a knock against you got a Democrat and a Republican, so it's not that. It was just maybe the state of the economy at the time. And all the early data shows, and this is why I wanted to bring it up, that it's going to be 10 out of 12. So what do we know to be true in 2026 in the U.S.? Number of resale transactions and the number of new construction combined in 2024, 4,753,000. The 2025 consensus forecast, as we record this on November 10th, is 4.817 million units. So
Hmm.
not a significant increase, and you could probably argue based on the data, mostly that was on new construction. Well, the
Yeah.
2026 consensus forecast for transactions, 5,257,929.
Hmm.
So any way you add that up, that's a 430-ish thousand increase. Two transactions, buy side, sell side. Call it, 860,000 additional opportunities for our friend listening in the US. That's kind of exciting. Now,
Hmm.
here's another talking point I want you to consider. So by the way, that's good news. That is can't solve affordability with a 50-year mortgage, we think, but again, the consumers will let us know. We'll see how that works out. You certainly see a lot more sticks in the ground, a lot more building. It's just not happening in everybody's marketplace. So new construction's, kind of limited to, market by market. The more interesting one is the data point around U.S. home price expectations. I shared this actually at the summit. So Fannie Mae home price index mean expectations. So Q3 2025 to Q4 2029. Three numbers for my friend listening. And I'm curious what your input's going to be. The lowest, the most pessimistic of all the forecasters, get this, Jimmy, in 4 years, 4.9% total appreciation for the combined 25 to 29. The panel wide, so the biggest group said 15.3% nationwide increase in that same period of time. And the most optimistic said 25.8%. 25.8%. Now, my first question for my listener would be, have you taken the time to go to Grok, Perplexity, ChatGPT and say, I'm a real estate agent in San Antonio, Texas. I was told these three numbers are the national numbers. What is the forecast for the next 4 years for San Antonio, Texas? And then I would go deeper and say, what's the forecast for 4-bedroom homes in San Antonio, Texas? What is the forecast for 2-bedroom condos detached in San Antonio, Texas? And I would get as much local data as I can, because I'd want to start talking about that. I'd want to start talking about the fact that all the forecasts say home price appreciation over the next few years is going to go up a little bit or dramatically. And we all know, from my listener knows, it's all market by market, and it's all product type by product type, and it's where they are on what side of the street, and north, south, east, west, central, all that good stuff. But Jimmy, when you hear those numbers, we started this by saying we should probably talk about things we should do before the end of the year. And I think one is you got to scream to the rooftop about all the options right now. The rate drop coming on December 9th and 10th. The possibility, I would do a poll today, and I would ask everybody on my Meta, channels, would you, if you were a first-time home buyer, for $300 a month saving, take a 50-year loan as an example, yes or no, and tell me why? I'd be like a yes, no, tell me why. I'd probably start with, did you know in the United States, the average median home buyer of a first-time home buyer today is 40? Did you know that? Yes or no? And then I would do a question in my next slide. It would be like, what do you think that means? Just to get, people's opinion. Then I would say, would you take a 50-year loan, right? Yes or no, for a $300, $500 a month savings, whatever it is, to get into the market? Yes or no? And then I would ask, would you refinance when the rates dropped? Yes or no? And then I'd probably share that exact thing that you went into ChatGPT or whatever you did to say, if you don't buy versus you buy, even with a 50-year loan, you're still net gain at this average sales price, $35,000 versus the person that doesn't. Like I want my friend listening to be thinking like, there's a lot of things they discussed on this, but what am I going to use that's actionable? What am I going to shoot a reel on? What's going to be in my next email newsletter? What's my next blog? What's my next long form video? So that's the stuff that goes through my head. What are you thinking?
Well, we have to have some empathy for the consumer when they're financing their burritos on like Klarna. We got to recognize they're looking for us to guide them with some like ideas around affordability instead of just saying it's an issue. So that's the first thing, just to call out.
Right.
But the thing, like my mindset, I'll tell you my mindset going into the end of the year, because we are business owners just like our audiences, and the growth mode is really an experiment for us to sort of show you how we can build something from the ground up without having to put our our brands behind it per se. And the thing that's going through my mind, Tom, is your business will never be bigger than your audience.
Yes.
And so the thing every agent who's watching this podcast, I think, believes and subscribes to is like, we're here to grow our businesses, which means in order to grow our businesses, we have to grow our audiences. And what that means is content around what's happening in the market, content, what's happening in your business, content, what's happening in the listings, getting it into more channels, doing it more frequently, learning what's working and making it better and better and better. You're going to see as we do this podcast, and even the content that Tom produces, the content I produce. Tom, before this call, I'm hopefully not sharing too much information, but before this call, Tom called me in the morning. I'm like, hey, what's your schedule today? And he's got like 6 podcasts he's got just today. And so like he is committed fully to this idea of getting in front of more people with the message to help more agents grow. And he's, he runs a big company. He's got a lot of things going on, but he's prioritizing that. And I think that would be the lesson I would be taking away from just what we do on this show is just prioritizing this idea of building your audience. Now more than ever, that's important. So I'm just a huge fan, Tom, of anything that you can do right now to increase the size of your audience because your business will never be bigger than your audience.
1000%. So I'll take it a different direction. Key marketing pieces that have to go out in January. So if you're
Mm-hmm.
listening, key marketing pieces that have to go out in January. One is a thank you, a love letter, a thank you to the 7, 10, 52, 193 buyers and sellers that chose to work with you in 2025. Like literally, I think I would do it in January. It would be, I want to thank all
Mm-hmm.
of the buyers and sellers, and I'd probably do photos of the houses. You
So
with me?
smart.
Right?
Yep.
In
Yep.
February, I want to write a love letter in honor of Valentine's to my entire database.
Mm-hmm.
I want, we've had this I've been in real estate for 18 years. We've had this relationship for 18 years. We come in and out of each other's lives when it's meaningful and important. I mean, I'm going to use ChatGPT or Grok to write this better than me, but it's a
Sure.
love letter to my farm. It's a love
Mm-hmm.
letter to the prospects in my database. It's a love letter to my past clients. It's a
Yeah.
love letter to my sphere segmentation. I would have them all be different in a perfect world, but if you write one, that's cool. Um, you need to show a map of the number of transactions you did,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because we know my buddy Dan Williams, who runs a little company called 3 Day Blinds. I remember sitting in a room, bringing it back to Zillow. We were in Phoenix, Arizona in 2014 at the very first Tom Ferry team retreat. And Dan got up and said, if you put a snowflake on every marketing piece from October to about March, you'll get a
Mm-hmm.
20% lift. And he said, trust me, he runs 3 Day Blinds. He does all the advertising for 3 Day Blinds. He books 5,000 appointments a week for his sales team. So when he says put snowflakes on it, Jimmy and I both know he has tested Christmas trees, Hanukkah candles, Santa Claus, a reindeer. And he's like,
Yeah.
snowflakes outperform everything. And everyone listening, think about this, start to watch the commercials and
Mm-hmm.
start to watch how many snowflakes you see on everything. The
Mm-hmm.
second thing he said was if you're looking for the fastest way to get a lift on clicks on a digital ad, on an email you want opened up, or even in this case, a social post, he said, all you have to do is put a map on it. People are
Mm-hmm.
obsessed with maps. And he said, our data, so this is like 2014. Now, the reason why I tell you this is about 60 days later, Zillow put a map on every agent's profile
Mm-hmm.
because Spencer Raskoff, the then CEO, and Greg Schwartz were in the room that day at that training. And I remember when Dan said it, they both looked at each other and went, huh, we're going to put a map on everybody's profile. So
Mm-hmm.
I would stress to the listener, I know I gave you a lot to think about there. Um, Snowflakes, hashtag snowflake, right? On every marketing piece, map of all your transactions, photos of all the houses, love
Mm-hmm.
letter to your past clients in Sphere, thanking them. Ready? I would do the same thing in February, a love letter to your lender partner, your title exec, your favorite escrow officer. I would scream from the rooftops how grateful you are for your business and for the people that support you and by proxy support your clients. I think that's a really good idea. I'd add a map on everything. I would probably do 3 Instagram reels, even if
Mm-hmm.
they were just simple as this. Guess who? I'm like, so if you can't see, I'm pointing as if I'm on an Instagram reel right now, and I'm pointing to the map above me. Uh, Guess who had the highest sales price in Irvine Terrace in the last 14 months? No, it wasn't me, my friends. It was my seller. They're the one that sold the home, right? Like, give all the credit to your clients, right? But by
Yep.
proxy, you get it. It's a double by proxy in one sentence there. That's pretty good. So, Jimmy, I'm thinking about that stuff. They got to get the word out
Sure.
and expireds, and more expireds.
Well, we're going to do an end of the year show on growth mode. Well, we'll maybe make a list of like the top
Yes.
10 or 15
Yes.
campaigns everyone should do starting the beginning of the year. And if you want us, before you land the plane here, Tom, if you want to attend a live growth mode, we're going to do, this is obviously a recorded podcast. We are planning on doing our very first live podcast. Maybe Jason Pantano will show up to that one here at that point. But let us know in the comments, please, if you want us to go live. If you want to get invited, because we will make sure that you get the invite so you can attend live and ask questions live, and we'll do our best to answer them with you in there.
Monday, December 1st, Growth Mode live on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and X. So jump into your favorite channel there. All right. So Jimmy, this was a really fun show. Jason, if you're listening, we do love you. And, it'd be really interesting. I can't wait to read the comments to see how many people said, yeah, I'd actually turn the pace up for you two guys because we're talking too slow compared to Jason. All right. Hey, for my friend listening, thank you. You have so many different options of, content you could listen to, content you can absorb. This was a new show. We just decided, three friends, we would get together and talk about the things that are meaningful to us, like growing businesses and creating audiences and creating connections and building revenue and everything else. So it just means a lot that you've taken the time out of your very busy schedule. So thank you for that, and get all this shit done that we just talked about. Get started immediately. All right, Jimmy, appreciate you, man. I do have to run to my next podcast, so I'll text you later tonight, buddy. I'll talk to you soon. And for my friend watching, thank you. We love you. We'll see you on the next one.